Welcome, everybody, to Acid Pop Cult episode 142 edition of this fine podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy, and with me, as always, is Jason from Icon vs. Icon. Jason, how you doing, man?
I'm doing very well today. Big news for Acid Pop Cult fans. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I'm still kind of in awe. Well, basically, I just got off the phone with my biggest interview to date. I know you've had some heavy hitters, and I know Steve Johnson's hit one single once in his lifetime, but this for me is a personal favorite. I just talked to Lin Shaye for about 45 minutes about the upcoming release of Insidious Chapter 3 and also her career as a whole. And I'm pretty excited about that.
Absolutely. I know originally we were kind of thinking we had more limited time, but you definitely surprised me when you say she was kind of, giving you plenty of content.
Yeah.
45 minutes is pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I told her at the beginning of the interview, which we will get to shortly, that, I didn't want to take up too much of her time, but she was more than happy to go the distance with me. So, I can't thank her enough. I can't thank Adam Rifkin enough. As you'll hear in the interview, he facilitated us getting together with Lynn. And I don't know. Should we just? Nobody wants to hear us talk. Should we just go straight to the interview?
Absolutely. Let this thing fly, baby.
All right. Well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Lin Shaye. Hello.
Jeremy.
Hi, Lynn. How are you?
I'm good. Am I on time? Am I prompt?
You are right on time. Actually, a minute early. Touche.
Oh my God! Maybe I better hang up and call you back.
Oh, please don't. Please don't. Well, I want to say thank you so much for taking time out of, I'm sure it's just a busy schedule to sit down and chat with us. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot.
Oh, you're so welcome. It's true. I mean, I've never talked to this many people in my entire life, I don't think. I told my manager we're going to have to check into a monastery as long as our rooms are next door to each other.
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to just dive right into it so I don't take up too much of your time this afternoon.
Oh, it's all good. Whatever time you need, I'm available for you guys. So fire away.
All right, I appreciate it. Well, the first question I have for you is, to me, you're a legend. Obviously, I'm such a huge fan of yours. Going back to just my childhood, you popped in everywhere, and I just wanted to know what started you on your journey into the entertainment industry and made you want to pursue a career in acting?
I never thought about a career move at all. I mean, I think I was that kid who didn't have a lot of kids in the neighborhood when I was little, and I really used to entertain myself by making up stories and putting on plays for myself. And I used to go into my bedroom and take all my clothes out of the closet and make a big pile of my clothes, my stuffed animals, and my dolls. And literally, and I would make up stories. That was kind of how I would entertain myself. It was kind of a lonely kid's way of having a fun day. And it just kind of, that was all, I always loved that. So then when I started school and, grade school, I would always find myself wanting to be in the plays and whatever plays there were. And that went all the way through high school as well. And when I graduated, I went to University of Michigan. I was an art history major. I didn't even think to major in theater or theater arts or anything like that. And when I finished college, I got my first job at the registrar's office at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. And I literally remember I was in about week 2 of filing. So I was filing little pictures of different artifacts that were coming to the museum. It was actually kind of an interesting little job, but very clerical. It was a real clerical job.
Right.
And I was just thinking, I was getting antsy. I was kind of wondering, so what next play am I going to get to be in? And it literally dawned on me that there was a profession that with a name that I could try to do, which was actor. So I applied to 3 different graduate schools. I applied to Brandeis, NYU, and Columbia, which had a brand new theater arts program. And I got into NYU and Columbia, and I decided to go to Columbia. So I stayed in New York and was in a 3-year program there, and then kind of segued almost seamlessly into off and off Broadway theater there, because so many of my teachers, Joe Papp was one of my teachers, and sort of a bevy of wonderful New York writers and directors who sort of came through the program and mentored us.
Right.
And so there it went. You know, I was very happy and always part of a community there. Nothing monumental had happened. I mean, I wasn't a big Broadway actress, or the most exciting time in New York was a play we did called The Taking of Miss Janie, which we started out at the Henry Street Settlement House, which is kind of a low-income free theater for young people in New York. And Joe Papp came and saw it from the public theater, you know, and who was now also part of Lincoln Center. And we took the play into the Mitzi Newhouse in Lincoln Center, which was totally a dream come true. And that was so, you know, that was it. There I was suddenly in the middle of a hit play. It won the Drama Critics Circle Award for, I think it was 1975. It was a long time ago. I got my equity card at the Chelsea Theater Center in 1971. That was my first outing as a professional actress.
Wow.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, from there you were off and running.
I was off and running, but, you know, again, it was sort of never any ambition to become a movie star or go to Hollywood. I mean, I never thought about any of that. And to be real honest, that's why it's kind of all caught me on some level off guard, because I love filmmaking now. I mean, I love theater, and I did it for, you know, all those years.
Right.
And when I did come out here, it's a long story having to do with Jack Nicholson. It's kind of become a slightly famous story of mine at the moment, but because a lot of people have asked about how I came to California. And what he was in New York casting Going South. This was 1977.
Yeah.
And my agent called me and said he'd seen a picture of me somewhere, and we just made an inquiry, and they were already back in Los Angeles. So I looked through my files and found all these pictures, and I was so excited that Jack Nicholson, you know, had said anything about me to anybody.
Right.
So I sent out a whole bunch of pictures with a little note, and I remember at the end of the note I said, I plan to be in Los Angeles for a short visit in the next 2 weeks, which was a total lie. I mean, I had no intention of coming to Los Angeles. And he responded. He said, I'd love to meet you when you come. So I literally packed my bags, and overnight I flew out to California the next day and met Jack Nicholson at Paramount Pictures, and I ended up with one line in his movie. It was the part of the parasol lady, and that kind of changed my life. You know, and from then on, I decided, maybe this is what I should be, where I should be, and so I gave up my place in New York and moved to L.A.
Right.
And then it gets hard again. You know, you never know what lies around the corner. And I think as long as you love what you do, and Lord knows I'm really dedicated to storytelling, so that has served me very well. And I think this is the first time in my life I've ever had any kind of an overview. You know, and then I think about Adam Rifkin. You know, like he changed my life too.
Yeah.
Because doing Detroit Rock City is still one of people's favorite movies that we ever did.
It's honestly, it's mine. It's what brought me to him.
Really?
Yeah. I've told him the story a few times, and basically that became my favorite movie freshman year in high school, because it holds such a place in my heart, because it was one of the few films that my father and I connected on.
Oh,
so
yeah, those are big deals.
Yeah, he wasn't a big cinephile, so whenever we actually sat down to watch a movie, and he just loved it, you know, and he, growing up in the 70s, he was a big rocker, he listened to Kiss and stuff, so it hit on both levels, you know.
Right.
So getting back to you, enough about me.
No, it's interesting. No, it's all. Listen, it's all part of the same thing.
Right.
My opinion.
You talked about having the mentors and even working with Jack Nicholson and on Going South, who were some of your biggest influences as a performer?
I think, well, I've had more, I think probably more influences by opportunity than I have from other actors. Actually, I must say, though, my favorite probably person that I was scared to death to meet, and one of the happiest people I've ever worked with was Woody Harrelson.
Yeah.
When I did Kingpin, that changed my life again as well. I mean, that movie was so iconic, and the Farrelly brothers were a really huge part of life changing for me. I mean, which then takes me back to my big brother, Bob Shaye, who started New Line Cinema.
Yeah.
And actually Detroit Rock City was a New Line Cinema project also. Mm-hmm. And so Bob was really, it's funny, we have a typical brother-sister relationship where, but he helped me more than he let on that he helped me, which I didn't know, because I would go, did you get me that thing? He said, oh, get your own work, He's like, he would always be but bottom line is, Dumb and Dumber, which was How I Met the Farrelly Brothers, was also a New Line movie.
Yeah.
So I guess Bob Shaye, my big brother, has been instrumental probably in more of my life-changing moments than almost anybody else, which I'm proud to say right now. I mean, it's really sweet to look back and have an overview of your own successes and to see where they came from. It's fun to trace things if you could do that on any level. Like, how did I meet that person? How did I meet that person? How did I get to that person? And the chain of events is usually pretty mundane, really. Sometimes it's, literally somebody you met at coffee somewhere who said you should call somebody. I mean, it can be as ridiculous as that, which is why I would tell young actors or just young people, never let a thread go. Someone throws you a balloon string, keep pulling on it and see where it's going to take you. So I think, all the people that I've worked with have really been contributors. You learn something from everybody. And, working with Cameron Diaz, they were big stars when I did Something About Mary, and as was Woody when I did Kingpin. These are people that real iconic actors that I looked up to. And what you realize is being a team player is part of the sport, and I think people that don't see it like that are missing out on kind of the fun of what it is to create a project together. And gratefully, I have not ever worked with anybody that's been a prima donna or any kind of I'm a star, so, and who are you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like Woody was out there running up and down to get his breath going in the scene and on the street as I was, and as giddy and happy to make the scene work as anybody I've ever worked with. And I guess that's really the mark of someone who loves who loves acting, who's not just about being a star. And I still feel about it all that way. No one's more surprised than me about any of this. I mean, really, I'm like, what? And I just keep hoping. I hope I keep enjoying storytelling as much as I do, and I hope I keep having the opportunity. And the more that happens, hopefully the more interesting and wonderful people I will work with that will make me grow as much as I hope I make them grow.
Fantastic. I'm sorry, my voice cracked.
No, I know.
I'm still in awe. I'm sorry.
You're cute. You're just plain cute. Tell Adam I said so.
I will. I'm going to say, shut up, Adam. Lin Shaye thinks I'm cute.
Yeah, right.
My next question is, Insidious Chapter 3 drops next Friday, June 5th.
Right.
When you first got involved with the franchise, what intrigued you about the role of Elise, and did you have any idea that the film would have such an impact like it has on the fans and the genre in general?
We had no idea, and it was, again, sort of one of these threads. I met James Wan because he was a fan of a movie I did called Dead End that has become kind of a cult favorite. I did it with Ray Wise. I think it's 2000. It was 2006, maybe 2000, something like that.
Yeah.
it's, if you haven't seen it, it's really a classic little horror film that's was wonderfully made for no money. You know, shot 3 weeks in Franklin Canyon, all night shooting. Ray Wise is one of my favorite people ever, and also such a committed, wonderful actor. And James had seen the movie, and he loved it. It was like one, and he found out that Tim Sullivan, who's another wonderful director I've worked with several times, was a friend of James's, and Tim was coming to my house, and James said, "Oh, I'd love to meet Lin," so he came, and that was how I met him. And then I did a little short piece for him. He asked me to do, he was doing these prequels for Xbox releases, which is kind of an odd thing, really. This was like I think it's like a 9-minute short called Doggy Heaven, which Lee Winnell and I star in. And Lee plays this guy who, through a clerical error, gets sent to dog heaven instead of heaven by mistake when he dies, when I shoot him, basically. It's a very funny little short, and I worked for a couple days with it on it with James and Lee, and a few months later, James called and he said, "Are you busy in April?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. What do you got?" And he said, "Well, I'm going to send you bring a script over," and it was Insidious, and he said, this is an idea we've had, and we're trying to get it done, and there's a role I'd like you to look at." So I read the script, I read it in bed. And it was so scary that when I finished it, I literally took it downstairs and closed it in the closet. I did for real, because I just didn't want it by my head while I was sleeping.
Right.
So, and so lo and behold, they got the financing. James said my first choices are Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne. He called me back about a week later saying, I got Patrick and Rose are on, and I'd love you to do it, and this is when we're shooting. And it was, again, $800,000 movie shot in 3 weeks. And we, you don't know. I mean, I just knew when I read the role, it was a lot of talking.
Yeah.
And, but Lee is a very skilled writer. I tease him and tell him he writes in Australian rather than in American. Because he has there's a poetry to what he writes, and it's in a cadence that's different than American writers. It's not slang. It's not you gotta it's like very eloquent writing. And Lee's a very eloquent guy, very well spoken and articulate, and his writing reflects that. And so I knew there was a lot of exposition. And I did my best. Exposition is not really exposition. You're still a character with going back to my early acting roots, which was Uta Hagen and Stella Adler and Lee Strasberg. I mean, I'm the real deal. I didn't just decide you could stand up there and say lines and have people clap. That's hardly at all what I'm really barely interested in. I mean, the clapping part is good. But and so I approached it like, who is this woman, and what's her history, and why is she coming to help these people, and what's her experiences? I really kind of wrote a history for her in my head, and it paid off. I mean, the people kind of just responded to the character, and I don't think any of us thought that was going to happen. And of course, everybody responds to Rose and Patrick because they're just amazing and beautiful people in every way, and terrific actors, and the story was really well told, and they were very exciting in the film.
Right.
And then when I remember James saying, I'm still struggling with killing you off at the end, because we're thinking if it goes any further, then what do I do? We want to have you back in the film. And then he said, well, of course, it's a ghost story. We can always find a way, to reintroduce you to the story. So we did the second one, after the first was successful. And I have, to this moment, am not 100% sure what the appeal of Elise is to the public, except that one young guy said to me, we feel safe when she shows up.
Yeah.
And so there's I'm wondering, because I've kind of been ruminating over this a little bit, here I am, past middle age, approaching 105, but who cares? And because I can still run up and downstairs with the best of them, and hope I can until the end of the day. But I'm not a likely heroine. I'm not the cute, I'm not the glamorous whatever. I'm not, I'm not that person. And so there's something obviously maternal about Elise, but and then you wonder, are people missing that in their lives? Because movies are pretend. I mean, and they fill some imaginary, fanciful place in people, which is, I think, why they go to the movies. And I'm wondering, it's true these movies are really scary. So then you think about people's real lives, the idea that they're being a safe haven of a person who's a safe haven, that has no problems that are going to. Your problem will not be with her. It'll be with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like she's the one that's not the problem. And anyway, I'm thrilled to pieces that people seem to love her, and then it's a little scary because I want to be able to fulfill whatever expectations people have, when I speak or whatever, and if there's more, that if there's more story to tell. I'm really grateful. I think that Lee wrote this prequel, which is, so what they decided is for this third one, Lee said, people want to see the live Lin Shaye, so why don't we do an origin story?
Right.
And he wrote the most gorgeous script. I mean, I really think, I love all the stories, don't get me wrong, 1 and 2 are amazing. But in terms of my character, he wrote the most beautiful character study that as an actor was totally exciting and so beautifully constructed to play this problem that she has, and that the story is about loss and grief, and that all these people share that, which is what brings them together. So it brings her together with Quinn and with Sean, with Quinn's dad, and how they all need each other for some comfort. There's some comfort level there that brings Elise back into her own life. And it's just, it was really exciting to chart and to map out, which is what I do. It's what I was taught to do, as a student actress. You have to figure out the line of your character. What does she learn? How does she change? What changes her? How does she change other people in the story? I mean, these are all big questions that a lot of actors don't really ask themselves.
Yeah.
And anyway, I'm grateful for my schooling, to be honest. I'm really grateful to have learned my craft, and it's always scary. I'm always totally terrified when I start a job, because I'm always afraid I won't come up with any answers.
Yeah.
And the way you come up with the answers is you go one step at a time. You start at the beginning. And I still like having a hard copy of a script in my hand rather than reading stuff on a computer, which makes me crazy. I think visually there's some disconnect. I really believe this, that there's some disconnect between that LED lighting and your brain and the difference between daylight and reading a script in real light with your eyes and on a piece of paper. There's a different... I think it honestly goes into your head differently on some level.
I know what you mean. Like when Adam sends me a new script, the first thing I do is I print it out. If I write something and I have to go back and do another pass on it, I'll print it out and reread it that way.
And I like taking notes and margins. I mean, I'm an old school, maybe that's just because that's how I grew and learned, and that, young actors today are learning a different way. They're learning, to read online and that's it. But I really value having the tactile experience of a script in my hand, and for me personally, I think it makes me smarter and better in terms of figuring out what I'm doing, as opposed to I just can't do it yet the other way. And listen, it is what it is. I'll have to make accommodations too, but as long as there's printers and I can still get a hard copy, that's how I like to have a piece of material.
Exactly. Well, you mentioned this is Lee's directorial debut,
right?
And of course, he did write the first 2 installments, along with a slew of other films. He's one of my favorite writers right now. I'm not trying to wax his car or anything.
No, I know. Well, he might let you, actually. It is a Tesla, so you might want to do it.
Oh, well, in that case, then yes, please.
Yeah.
Hand me the ShamWow.
Right. Get the ShamWow and pronounce it right.
With you working with Lee as a co-star and as him being the writer on the first two installments, now that he did step into that director's chair, what was it like working with Lee on this project as opposed to working with him in the past, or was there any difference?
It was different. I mean, on some levels. We were both nervous wrecks the first day, for real, both of us, because I was nervous too, because it was a lot of responsibility on me all of a sudden, you know, a different kind. And Lee was, even though he hit it pretty well, I mean, but he confides now that he was, you know, a nervous wreck also the first day, because it's scary. You're walking into big, you know, James Wan's got some big shoes to fill now, and
Yeah.
and Lee's the first one to say he's one of the masters of modern horror. That he really, nobody knows how to build a scare like James Wan does, and he's also got that heart that fills it, which makes it even scarier. And Lee, the difference for me primarily when I worked with James, I mean, this is not one's better than the other at all. These are just two different styles of people. James is more, he's a real cinephile. I mean, he really sees the images and what he wants and how he wants to move the images and how he wants to build his scares and how you know, and so his focus is on that rather than on, you know, your emotional content as the actress. I mean, we never discussed Elise in any real way. He just trusted I was the right person for it, because there was something that he saw in me that he thought was really right for the character. And so he pretty much let me go. I mean, I did what I did. Occasionally he'd tweak it by saying, you know, it doesn't feel mysterious enough here, or, you know, you've got to build the tension a little bit more. But he would tell me stuff like that. He wouldn't really get into the emotionality or anything. You know, it was more whatever I brought to it. My favorite moment, which is interesting, I don't know if I would have come up with it when I was working with Lee, and I'll tell you why in a minute, but at the very beginning in the first movie where I come to the door, and it just, he said is, you know, you're coming up to the door, you knock on the door, and, you know, Josh opens the door, and you greet them. And there was a doorbell on the door. And so I rang it. The doorbell rang, which I didn't know if it did. You know, we were in this old house in I guess it's in Highland Park here in L.A. or somewhere close by. And I said, well, what if she rings the doorbell and knocks? And then I came up with this line of saying, oh, you know, when they open the door, it's embarrassing because you're knocking and ringing. And then she says, you know, I'm sorry, you know, I wasn't sure that the doorbell worked, which was which actually tells a whole lot about the character.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just a comment. It says, here's a woman who's coming to, you know, to check out demons in your home, but who doesn't know if the doorbell works or not. So it kind of sets her up as being not a mysterious, like, oh, I know that this is not, you know, she was never that person.
Yeah.
Now, Lee, who is also a performer, which also informs his directing, because he basically, I'd see him mouthing the words sometimes when I was, and I would just, can I say a bad word? Am I allowed to say a bad word?
Oh, yes, please.
Because I wanted to say, shut the fuck up. do not do my lines while I'm doing them, okay? Yeah. But Lee could do the whole movie all by himself. He didn't need any of us, because he knows every, you know, and so he, being a performer and an actor, was much more involved in the way I would deliver things. And sometimes that wasn't good for me, because what it would do is, me being the actress also who wants to please her director, is it kind of would knock me off my own base a little bit. And I told him this. I mean, we actually had, and then he would like talk, before we'd start a scene, he would give me all this background, which was fabulous, but it didn't pertain to the scene. You know what I mean? There's finally the moment that you got to come to when you open the door. Like, what do you know, that's what you care about. It's not, you know, how many dogs I had. I mean, which maybe works. You know, it's also great background stuff to put in your vocabulary. But for me, I work very hard on what I'm doing, and when I get ready to work, I kind of need to just really focus on where I'm going with what I'm doing, which then allows new things to happen. But when someone, Lee, who was so exuberant about explaining things in and again, in a beautiful and full and energetic and emotional way, but sometimes it was more than I could handle. It was actually more my fault. It's like it was more than I could handle at the moment. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yeah.
And so we used to talk about that, and I even in other interviews we've talked about it. But that's him learning a new vocabulary. Also, as a director, every actor works a little different. Mm-hmm. Another actress may thrive on all that. I need to be able to first do what I've planned and then fix it. Then you fix me, and then whatever they want, I'm going to do what they want me to do. But I have to at least feel I'm giving them everything I've thought about first.
Yeah.
Because I've got a through line going in my own head with the character. So that was different because with James there was no, we never discussed Elise. Occasionally he'd say something like, she evolved as we did the film, and Lee has a very strong conception of Elise because he created her.
Yeah.
So that was different, but it was really fun. And I mean, I think ultimately, I had to give too and go, okay, let Lee express himself in his way, because I have to learn as an actress too to shut up.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like let him tell me everything he needs to say, and when I finally let go of my own control in that way, mm-hmm. sometimes things would come through from him that were totally fabulous and that made the performance better. So it was both. It was me learning also how to work with Lee, and he's fantastic. I think the film is fantastic.
Yeah, I've read that both you and Lee say that this might be it is the scariest outing. So I'm so amped
it's by
up
far
for it.
It's the scariest. It's the scariest also because it hits you in a very different kind of place almost than the first two. It's much grittier. It's much more of this world, of this earth. The others are a little bit more. The demons are. This lipstick demon is this fabulous demon. The scary demon in this one is somewhat recognizable, which makes him even scarier, in my opinion.
I cannot wait until next week. Actually, we just bought our tickets. We're going on Thursday night at the late screening. So,
awesome!
Awesome! I cannot wait. Before I wrap things up, I just wanted to talk real quick about an award that you recently receed.
Right.
You've been deemed the godmother of horror at what was it? Wizard World, Philadelphia.
Wizard World, right?
How does that make you feel? Like what does the honor mean to you to be deemed the godmother of a genre?
I don't think I've really let it all sink in yet. I mean, in the beginning, I didn't know. We were planning this trip to Detroit, which is where I'm from originally, and then the New York Times I have a piece coming out in the Arts and Leisure this Sunday in the New York Times, which was totally amazing to me that they called and asked for me. And so I was going to New York, and they said, well, on the way to New York, we're going to stop in Philadelphia because you're being given a little tribute. And they didn't really tell me what it was. I didn't really know what it was about. And I kind of figured, oh, well, what kind of that's really not, I figured it would be like a little certificate with a blue ribbon on, something that you put in your thing, and then when they told me it was at WizardCon, I thought, oh my God, that's a pretty big convention, and then they said, yeah, you're going to get the Godmother of Horror, award. So I didn't really. It started out for me thinking it was really just somebody meeting me at the airport and giving me a piece of paper, basically, to this kind of big deal with a Q&A, and they did this beautiful sizzle reel of my career, which was just fantastic, and a beautiful statue. It's flames. It's like blown glass flames. That says Godmother of Horror under it, and the moderator. We had a wonderful Q&A, and I'm sort of floored and kind of flabbergasted because I think I never I never had any aspirations to be a part of any particular genre, really. I mean, it's not like I never grew up loving horror films, because the fan base for horror is amazing.
Yeah.
It's the nicest group of people you'll ever meet. I mean, they are just totally amazing people and dedicated to their genre. And I consider really myself a storyteller who loves good stories, good characters, and good people. And the genre isn't as important to me as those three elements. But the fact that I've been recognized and got an opportunity to do, I go back to Critters, which was also New Line Cinema, which was my brother.
Yeah.
Who said, put my sister in your movie.
And even before that, you had a nice little appearance in Nightmare on Elm Street, which changed the genre.
That was after Critters.
Oh,
I think, wasn't it? I think so. Critters came first, I think.
I thought Critters was '86. My mistake. I apologize.
No, well, I don't know. You might be right, because if you've been you probably did your homework and I didn't. You're right. That Nightmare on Elm Street might have been the very first one, and that really was my brother saying to Wes Craven, "Put my sister in your movie." I mean, that was like, and so I've had these opportunities, and which. It's fabulous that I had these opportunities, and that they even came from someone in my family. In a way, makes it even sweeter. And yet, I think for all of us, the thing you got to do is when you get an opportunity, you got to spin some gold with it. You got to do your best, and you hope you achieve success with it. And I guess I was able to do that. So this award is sort of a culmination of all these wonderful projects I've gotten to do. Over the years, and I love the fan base is beautiful. I love these people. They're so funny and sweet and kind and considerate. And I did Monster Mania. I don't really do conventions much because I'm not. I'd rather be working, and if I can and all that right now. Yeah. But I did Monster Mania primarily because I wanted to promote Insidious 3 as well. And wow, what a great bunch of people! Really, really kind and generous and committed. So those are all really wonderful qualities, no matter how you slice it. Whatever they're committed to. So I feel very honored to answer your question. I certainly have talked a lot, but
oh no, it's a pleasure.
I totally feel honored. I mean, I really do. I think it's. And the trophy, it's like a little trophy to me. It sits, right in front of my Insidious poster on my table. So nice. I see it every day.
Last question, and this is something that we like to ask all of our guests, just to help spread the word if we can. Are you involved in any charity or organization that we can shed some light on for listeners?
Oh, thank you for asking that. I'm a big animal advocate, so pretty much any animal charity is. I don't have one particular that I donate to. I mean, I kind of am one of those people that, as it catches me, I'll donate here and donate there. But you know what? I really should find one or two things that I can really help promote. That you're putting a little fire under me as well. Oh. But I would say, any of these animal charities, even the ASPCA, I mean, they do amazing work. There's all these creatures that are struggling, and of course all these people that are struggling. I mean, it's like, how do you pick? And sometimes what I do is I try and find people in my own life that I think could use a boost.
Yeah.
And sort of and so I do it that way sometimes because I know exactly where that money's going and what it's for, kind of, which is also a good way to be charitable, to try to be charitable really on a daily basis, whatever that may mean. A good tip to a great waiter, to surprise people when they're not expecting it. I a little bit operate more on a grassroots level like that rather than national. I haven't really committed myself to a national charity.
Hey, keeping it real, though, on the streets, Lin Shaye.
Keeping it real. It's true. It's kind of, you got to keep it real. And, and sometimes people weren't expecting it. I've offered people stuff and they've said, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Which is also awesome. I mean, that's, having a real sense of nobility about their lives for themselves. And, but you just made me, I should think of along that line and come up with something that I really would like to promote, because it does make a difference.
I'm
So
glad.
Thank you for that.
I'm glad I could do that.
Yep.
I do have to say one little bit of business, and this is for Mr. Rifkin.
Okay.
He says to tell you hello and that he just adores you, which I'm sure you know.
Well, I adore him too. He's a gifted guy. Totally great.
You have a project that's upcoming that he's working on right now, director's cut.
Yeah.
Starring and written by Penn Jillette.
Yep.
Directed by Adam, of course, and Harry Hamlin, Missy Pyle, Hayes MacArthur are in the cast. I've been fortunate enough to have seen a couple of big chunks, and I just have to say that you are terrific as Captain Wheeler and director's cut.
Thank you for saying that, because we shot that. This is a crazy story. I hiked the Inca Trail in Peru with my sister-in-law this last fall, and before I left, Adam, I knew they were doing this, and Adam asked if I could do a role in it, and I'm not available.
Yeah.
And I was so miserable about that. I said, Adam, find something for me. I said, I want to be in this movie. Just find anything, whatever it is. And literally, I was in Peru with my iPhone. This is the truth. And I didn't want to pay the extra things, so I didn't have any special plans, so all my data was turned off. Everything was turned off.
Yeah.
And somehow we hiked to the top of this. I don't even know exactly where we were. They followed us up with bicycles, and we were going to bicycle down this mountain like for 2.5 hours to get to the starting point of the Inca Trail. We got to the top of the mountain, and all of a sudden my phone starts going bing, 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 bing. Because I had it with me to take pictures, because we had it to take photos. And they were all these text messages from Adam saying, can you do this, blah, blah, blah. And it literally was going to shoot the morning. I got back from Peru. Our plane was supposed to land like 10 o'clock at night. I was supposed to be on set with Adam at 7:30 the next morning.
Wow.
And he sent me the sides, literally. And when we got to the hotel, we had what did we do? We emailed the sides to the hotel. The hotel printed out the sides. I learned them lying in the Salvation Hotel in Machu Picchu, and got on a plane that night. And while Ava was sleeping, I was working my lines, and got home and went to bed. And the one thing was, Adam said, "We'll send a car for you," which was heaven on earth, because I didn't know where I was. I never would have showed up. And that was how we shot that. So it all worked out. I was really happy, and we had a great day, and I'm glad it worked out.
Well, that sounds like fate right there. It was totally meant to be, because like I said, you're just so fantastic in the film, and
thank you so much.
I can't wait for you to see it.
I can't wait to see it either. I know Adam's really proud of it. So, well, I hope I meet you, and don't let Adam pistol whip you.
Oh, not too much.
But just a little. On your arm.
Yeah, exactly. No bruises, of course.
Right, no bruises.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for making the time. I from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it so much, and I cannot wait to see Insidious Chapter 3.
Oh, I think you're going to really like it, Jeremy. And thank you again. This was really, you caught me at a really good time, too. I got to tell you, I've been so tired from talking to press and stuff, but I've had like the last 3 days or so, I've been sleeping a lot with my dog. That's really trying to catch up, and it's still continuing. There's more until the opening, but I hope everyone loves the movie as much as I love doing it, and who knows what lies ahead into the further we go.
Ooh. Thank you so much, Lynn.
You're welcome. Thanks, Jeremy.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
My mom died 1.5 years ago.
When she called out to someone she loved,
Sometimes I can feel her around me. Mom?
she unleashed the evil that started it all.
If you call out to one of the dead, all of them can hear you.
Discover the beginning of the Insidious saga.
It's feeding on her soul.
You said you could bring her back! Insidious Chapter 3, rated PG-13.
Welcome back to Acid Pop Cult, everybody. Again, episode 142 edition of this, now star-studded affair. I know that I had a lot of fun doing that interview. It sounds like Lynn had a lot of fun being interviewed, and hopefully you, the audience, had a lot of fun listening to that interview. I'm still so giddy. What can I say?
Well, what I guess my question for you is, now it's my turn to ask questions. So,
Right on.
what was the biggest thing? I know it's still fresh in your mind, but what was the biggest thing that stood out to you, about her career that you might not have known? Anything kind of take you by surprise?
Yeah, basically her feeling that it, when she started pursuing it, she didn't really know that she was pursuing it, and she talks about it in the interview about how she was doing mostly clerical work, and then she found out that wait a second, I can do a career out of this, and it's called actor, and just kind of hitting the ground in New York and starring on off Broadway plays and whatnot, and then just by happenstance getting a call from Jack Nicholson's company for her to appear in Going South, and from there it just kept snowballing. And she talks a lot in the interview about how she didn't know at the time, but now that she's been able to take a look at her career as a whole now, a lot of what happened to her and her pursuits were by happenstance, or even just like Bob Shaye telling Wes Craven, put my sister in your movie. She didn't know that stuff was going on at the time, and it really gives her a new perspective on looking at her career as a whole, as how hard it was to pursue, but still also so fortunate she was to have Bob Shaye in her corner, as when the big brother is the head of New Line Cinema, and she keeps getting thrown into these roles, whether it be Nightmare on Elm Street or Critters or some other New Line titles, Dumb and Dumber, with the Farley brothers, and even Detroit Rock City, that was a New Line project. And I'm not saying that she got those jobs just because of who Bob Shaye was, but I guess in the beginning, maybe, by him saying to Wes Craven, put her in, it helped a lot. And I guess I didn't really know that much about that whole aspect. I mean, I always knew that she was Bob Shaye's, younger sister, but to have the president of New Line Cinema in your corner, it definitely helps kickstart things a little bit. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Something else that I found interesting, whenever she first gets on the call, she says she's never talked to this many people in her life because she's currently doing a lot of press for Insidious Chapter 3, which drops next Friday. And, it is really like this film is her, and the franchise really is built on her character's back in a way. And she's never really had that before, so she's getting a lot more exposure than what she would as, say, the landlady and Kingpin.
Right.
Memorable roles, great roles, and it definitely kickstarted things. She talks at one point about how she was in Dead End with Ray Wise, and James Wan seen that and said, I want to work with her. And just because he knew Tim Sullivan, and Tim Sullivan's worked with her a lot over on his films, it things just kept falling into place for her and whatnot.
Absolutely.
I don't know. What did you learn from the interview? I learned that I'm a sweetheart and I'm cute.
Those are always the things you really take away from the interviews, aren't they?
Yeah, the compliments and whatnot. And I do apologize to the audience, because I'm sure that they've heard me talk enough about the experiences that I've had with Rifkin, or Detroit Rock City being so close to my heart. But whenever you're talking to the star of Detroit Rock City, it comes up, okay? One of my biggest complaints about the interview though is that I was so starstruck at first that I don't know. I think you could feel me shaking in the audio.
Hey man, you came out swinging with a pretty big interview for one of your first forays into this medium. So
Right.
I think that's excusable to say the very least.
Can I finally get some Icon versus Icon stationery now?
Perhaps, yes. We'll definitely list you on the the staff page if you'd like.
Right on. Do I get written by or co-written by? Because I know you're transcribing.
Perhaps.
I've hey man, I've been ghostwriting this many years. Why not? Right?
Yeah, there's some truth in that.
So this episode is a little unconventional. We're dropping it the day after episode 141. Obviously, we have good reason to. We want to get the episode out there in time for anybody that wants to check out the interview with Lin, with time leading up to the movie and everything. So we do apologize for kind of bogging down the iTunes feed. Like Jason said at the beginning of the show, we thought that it was going to be a little bit easier to squeeze into the last episode, but with Lin being so gracious and just so willing to share, whenever you get that much content from anybody, let alone a legend, the actual godmother of horror, we figured it best to just kind of split it off into its own little entity. For anybody that's wondering why this is a day after episode 141. Right?
Absolutely.
Anything else for this episode that you can think of?
No, I just encourage people to give us some feedback on the interview, what you thought, who you hope we might interview in the future, something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And if they know Adam Rifkin personally, that kind of helps.
It certainly doesn't hurt.
Yeah, definitely. And you can always email the show at acidpopcult@gmail.com. You can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/acidpopcult. We're on Twitter at acidpopcult. You can leave feedback at all those places. More importantly, though, Icon versus Icon is a website that Jason runs. And apparently I am now on the staff page. And you can find those links at... Well, I guess I just said it. iconversusicon.com.
Yeah, I can't get much more specific than that at this point.
Yeah.
Until it's transcribed and put up. It's going to be a little bit before we get that one. Obviously, it's a longer interview, so probably by the end of next week, if you want to check out the... definitely before the movie drops, if you want to check out the printed version for some reason, if you're hearing impaired, perhaps.
Yeah.
You'll be able to do so there, and of course, we'll put the links up.
Actually, they should still, if they haven't already, go like facebook.com/acidpopcult, and they should follow you on Twitter at acidpopcult, just because it's the gentleman thing to do.
We don't have any gentlemen listeners, Jeremy. They're all savages.
They are. Well, maybe Chris is bringing some kindness. Chris isn't that much of a savage. He's too busy out in the wild collecting vinyl.
Very true. But yeah, I think this will be a treat for anybody who's a fan of her work or just the Insidious franchise. So very cool that you got the opportunity to do it, man. I'm super happy it worked out, and great job.
Yeah, thank you. And like I said this morning or last night after I couldn't get my group chat to work, I wish you were there, but honestly, I didn't miss you. Anything else that we want to plug before we go? iTunes. Go like us on iTunes. Subscribe if you have the iPhone podcast app. Subscribe us. Leave us a review. I'm guessing that this interview might give us a little bit wider audience. So if you liked what you heard, maybe you'll check out some other interviews that we've done, or guests that we've had on, or just shows where we just talk about us and our likes and dislikes. And that's, search us on iTunes, Acid Pop Cult. So until next week when we do an episode proper, he's been Jason, I've been Jeremy, saying tiptoe through the tulips, maybe?
Tiptoe through the window, by the window, that is where I'll be. Come tiptoe through the tulips with me. Oh, tiptoe from the garden, by the garden, on the willow tree, and tiptoe through the tulips with me. The flower will stay. We'll keep the showers away. And if I kiss you in the garden, in the moonlight, will you pardon me and tiptoe through the tulips with me? Showers away, and if I kiss you in the garden, in the moonlight, will you pardon me and tiptoe through the tulips with me?